The last photo ever taken of them showed the sun setting behind a red sandstone cliff, its light falling just behind Theo's shoulder as he grinned, shirtless, tanned, sunburned, at the edge of the ledge. Jordan stood beside him, giving a mock salute in aviators and a straw hat, while Ellie crouched at their feet with a peace sign and a cracked Nalgene bottle. It was the kind of moment you'd expect to end a summer. 3 university students on a backcountry geology trip before their final year. Laughter, dusty backpacks, heat lines rising from the canyon. And then, silence. They were supposed to return to campus 3 days later. Their last check-in had been from a payphone in the border town of Haight. After that, no more calls, no more sightings, no campsite, no bodies. Not even a single footprint. 5 decades passed. Most people assumed it was the desert, so vast, so easy to miscalculate. Maybe a flash flood swept them away. Maybe they wandered off trail. The theories were all predictable. What no one ever imagined was that the truth would come fluttering out of a drone camera feed 50 years later. It was March 2024 when Callum Hayes, a retired aerospace engineer and amateur filmmaker, launched his quadcopter above a rock formation in the Maze, district of Canyonlands. He had no agenda beyond capturing dramatic sunrise angles for his YouTube channel, Desert Silence. The drone rose in slow arcs, humming softly as it glided between red cliffs. At minute 12 of the footage, Callum paused the reel to adjust exposure, and noticed something odd. A glint. Not sunlight off rock, but something too perfect, too metallic, nestled in a narrow seam of the canyon wall, half obscured by lichen and dust. He marked the GPS and returned 3 days later with rope, a climbing buddy, and a healthy dose of skepticism. What they extracted from that rock slit wasn't treasure or relic. It was a film canister, half crushed, sealed with aluminum tape, its lid rusted but intact. Inside, a tight coil of Polaroid photos, a water-stained page of graph paper with annotations in red pen, and, at the very center, a folded sheet of aluminum foil with one sentence scraped into the metal surface using what looked like a multi-tool. Knife! We are not lost. We are watched. If this is red, they are still here. Callum didn't upload the footage. He took the canister straight to the local ranger station, which passed it to the Utah State Bureau of Investigation. It took months to authenticate. The paper was 1970s stock. The Polaroids had faded, but still showed faces. Young, carefree, wind-burnt. One image showed the trio standing in front of a narrow shack built into the cliff, almost invisible against the red rock. Another, darker, blurrier, seemed to show someone else standing in the background. Someone not part of the group. The canyon's silence, long accepted as natural, began to feel heavy. Back in 1974, the 3 students, Theo Morgan, Jordan Reeds, and Eleanor Ellie Case, had filed an unofficial route map with their university's outdoor club. They planned to hike a loop between Horse Canyon and the remote Chimney Rock Spur. Theo was the de facto leader, stubborn, resourceful, and endlessly curious. Jordan was the quiet one, more interested in photographing petroglyphs than collecting rock samples. Ellie kept the peace, sketching every outcrop they passed in a leather-bound notebook her father had given her. They'd planned for a week, rations for 9 days. No one panicked when they missed their expected return date. It wasn't until Ellie's sister received no reply on her birthday call, a call Ellie never missed, that her parents contacted the university. By then, 6 days had passed. The first search parties found nothing. Helicopters scanned dry riverbeds. Park rangers rode for miles. Volunteers combed ravines. There were no signs of struggle, no gear, no boot prints, just miles of red stone and wind. Rumors bloomed over the years like lichen on bone. Some said they fell into a slot canyon. Others whispered about cults, militias, or survivalist groups hiding in the desert. But without evidence, the file remained cold. Until the canister. Among the contents, one photo stood out. Ellie's handwriting on the back, scrawled in permanent marker. They stood at the cliff again last night. No fire, just watching. I don't think they blink. That was all. Experts tried to extract fingerprints from the film canister, but found none usable. The Polaroids were restored and archived. The graph paper contained a rough map and a list of coordinates, which seemed to match old topographical charts. At the marked location, investigators found nothing. Just a long crumbled ledge and what might have once been post holes. No building, no tools, no remains. The canyon, it seemed, had covered its secrets well. The families of the missing were all gone by then. Theo's younger brother, Alan, now in his 70s, said simply, "He always wanted to disappear into something bigger than himself. I just hoped he'd come back from it." News of the discovery spread. Reddit sleuths proposed every theory from UFOs to government black sites. A few believers claimed to have seen flickering lights near the maze in the 1980s. Most thought it was just another canyon mystery. Unsolvable, unnerving, unprovable. But one detail changed everything. The aluminum foil message, once scanned in UV light, revealed more beneath the surface. A second layer of engraving. Weaker, possibly older, scratched with less force, maybe with a fingernail or a rock. They said we could leave if we left everything. But Jordan ran. Now they won't speak to us. They just watch. The door only opens once. The Bureau kept this hidden from public release. Too speculative. Too frightening. But someone leaked it, and the internet burned with it. Ellie's cousin, now a retired teacher in Flagstaff, said in a radio interview, "I remember her talking about this trip like it was sacred. She wanted silence, wanted stillness, but I never thought she'd vanish into it." The final layer of the mystery came with the Polaroids. One photo, blown up and digitally enhanced, showed what looked like a doorway carved into the cliff, bordered by smoothed stone and covered in handprints. Dozens of them. Child-sized, adult-sized, overlapping and uneven. Not painted, not natural. Some were upside down. No such formation has been found since. The canyon continues to swallow wind and scatter echoes. Some believe that the students stumbled onto a hermit community. Off-grid, territorial, perhaps religious. Others think it was something older. Something not meant to be seen. As for the phrase, "If this is red, they are still here," no one knows what it means. Was it a warning, a confession, a hope, or a curse? But here's what no one disputes anymore. They didn't get lost. They were taken. The canyon's silence was never just silence. It was a presence, a pressure. That's what Theo wrote in one of his surviving field notes, recovered from a pocket-sized weather log archived at the university but never previously connected to the case. A note dated 3 days before their disappearance. "Wind's been circling all night. Feels like it's folding in on itself. Like it's listening." Until 2024, no one had thought to cross-reference that note with the region's acoustics. But when the forensic team reviewed drone audio from the discovery site, an anomaly emerged. A low hum, steady and pulsing beneath the natural wind. Experts dismissed it as interference. Others weren't so sure. By midsummer, the Bureau returned to the Maze District with new technology, thermal drones, and AI-assisted terrain mapping. They weren't looking for bones anymore. They were hunting for patterns, structures, disturbances in the sandstone layers that might indicate artificial shapes hidden beneath erosion or debris. For days, nothing. And then, in a narrow bend called Dead Mule Pass, a drone captured heat signatures, not from humans, but from stone. A section of wall warmer than its surroundings despite being shaded. Infrared showed a thin rectangle 6 feet tall, 3 feet wide, flanked by temperature anomalies resembling pillars. A door-shaped ghost, as one agent described it. But when the team reached it, the wall was solid. No seams, no mechanism, just sandstone. Until nightfall. That evening, a local guide named Pilar Ojeda, who'd grown up hearing stories about the canyon that swallows, noticed something different. Her flashlight beam, when passed over the wall, refracted strangely, as if hitting thin glass. She approached, pressed her palm against the rock, and felt airflow. Cool. Damp. Not possible. The area was sealed off. Samples were taken, and still no explanation. But the press didn't wait. Rumors exploded. Secret doors, buried chambers, even speculation about ancient Anasazi strongholds repurposed by post-war survivalists. Paranormal channels on YouTube claimed to hear whispers in the drone audio. Most of it was nonsense. But then a second message surfaced. It arrived by mail at the Glen Canyon Ranger Station in an unmarked envelope. No return address. Inside was a photocopy, grainy and curled, of what appeared to be a journal page, written in the same red ink as the map found in the original canister. At the bottom, scrawled in Ellie's unmistakable script, were the words, "He said we shouldn't have looked, but we did, and now he won't let us go." Forensic linguists confirmed the match. But how had it surfaced? Had someone retrieved it? Had someone kept a second cache? The page matched no existing archive. The question now wasn't just what happened in 1974. It was, who still knows? In the months that followed, an unofficial group formed. Historians, survivalists, geographers, and digital archivists, calling themselves the Three Echoes. They weren't conspiracy theorists, at least not at first. Their mission was simple: map everything, decode the geography, and search for any sign that what the trio found still existed. The most obsessive among them, a PhD student named Lyle Granger, built a composite map overlaying Ellie's sketch with satellite data, Polaroid shadows, and seasonal erosion patterns. He proposed that what looked like a random cliff may, in fact, have been part of a constructed facade, slowly eroding to reveal its age. His conclusion, posted on a public forum, was unsettling. They didn't vanish. They passed through something. The canyon isn't just landscape, it's mechanism. Many mocked him, but others listened, especially after one member of the group, an experienced climber named Siobhan Curran, vanished for 72 hours after heading alone toward Dead Mule Pass. She was found dehydrated, delirious, 2 miles off her intended path, clutching a slip of wax paper. On it, a childlike drawing of 3 stick figures behind bars. One had a circle for a head, the others had X's. She didn't remember drawing it. Back in 1974, the trio had logged each camp they made with rudimentary sketches and timestamps. The logs didn't survive, but the photographic timestamps from the Polaroid suggested one unusual pause. A full day spent near a rock alcove where no natural water source or cave shelter existed. One image, zoomed and clarified with AI tools, showed drag marks in the sand, at first assumed to be from packs or tents, but now, maybe not. This brought investigators back to a previously disregarded account. A 1974 ranger report by a part-time backcountry monitor named Earl Dusty Cord. In it, he described seeing a makeshift smoke signal in an area near Chimney Rock, but dismissed it as a campfire from cattle herders. His superiors ignored the report. Herding was rare, but not unheard of. Now, paired with the new discoveries, the signal took on new weight. Had someone tried to signal for help? In October 2024, a full excavation began. Permits were granted. Archaeologists and forensic teams spent weeks carefully removing overburden from a half-buried ledge near the canyon's lip. Beneath 6 feet of sediment, they found a wooden beam, blackened by fire but still intact. Carbon dating placed it between 1960 and 1980. It was real. A structure had once stood there. In a rock crevice nearby, an old Boy Scout knife with Theo's initials carved faintly into the side. It was the first physical confirmation that the students had been there, and possibly had tried to mark their path. More disturbingly, just beyond the site, 2 crude stone markers were found, cross-shaped, wedged into the soil with smoothed rocks around them. Burial sites? Warnings? The soil beneath yielded no bones, no remains, but one of the stones had a single word etched into its underside, shallow but deliberate. Run. Theo's brother Alan visited the site in late November. He didn't speak to the media. Just stood on the ledge where his brother may have died, or been taken, and laid down a folded flag from their father's naval service. His only words, spoken to a ranger. He told me once when we were kids that some places aren't mapped for a reason. I thought he meant adventure. Maybe he meant this. The ranger said nothing, just nodded. Because by then, everyone involved knew this story had stopped being about loss and had become about presence. An intelligence in the canyons, a pattern in the wind. The idea that someone, something, had watched, waited, and let them leave a message, but not a trace, and that message had taken 50 years to travel. At the State Archive, all known documents are kept in controlled humidity. Ellie's note on aluminum foil, the foil itself, the red-inked map, the Polaroids, the new wax paper drawing, photos of the wooden beam, the carbon date tags. Together, they form a dossier with a simple spine label. Case, wind markers, status, unresolved, EQ, status, monitored. Only a handful of people know what that last word means. Because while the canyon gives up very little, what it keeps is just as telling. And on the Bureau's encrypted server, there's one last image, never released. A frame from Callum Hayes's drone feed, zoomed, stabilized. Frame 1936. Behind the shimmer on the stone wall for a fraction of a second, a shape, humanoid, unmoving, appears. It's not Ellie, not Theo, not Jordan, and it's not Callum. It's still there, still waiting. The Bureau didn't release the last drone frame to the public. Not because it was conclusive, quite the opposite. The figure was barely visible, distorted by lens refraction and wind shimmer. But for those who had spent months combing the canyons, shadows, it was enough to shift the story from missing persons to something older, something less defined. Still, they kept digging, not just into the ground, but into records, testimonies, whispers. One file, previously overlooked, came from the University of Colorado archives. A 1974 Geology Club newsletter featured a short, farewell column written by Theo before his final trip. Most of it was playful banter about surviving on jerky and not getting eaten by rattlers, but one line stood out. "If we don't come back, we probably found a door and walked through." What had been a joke then now felt like prophecy, especially after the second cache was discovered. It was a dog that found it, an aging Labrador named Bowie, out on a trail with his owner, a retired postal worker named Cherie Lugo. They were hiking above the Rim Arch Path, an area not previously associated with the case. Bowie started pawing at a patch of loose sand near a collapsed tree. Cherie, thinking he smelled a snake, pulled him back, but not before she noticed the edge of a rusted tin canister just poking through the dust. Inside, 2 torn pages. One burned at the edges, one intact. The intact page had a date, August 14th, 1974. It was Ellie's handwriting again. Faded, shaky, final. "We're not hurt, just held." Jordan stopped speaking. Theo keeps watching the ledge. "They say the light tells them when to open the wall. I don't know if they're lying. I think they're afraid too. We only see them in pairs, always in pairs. Then there's music sometimes, not from instruments. It vibrates in the rock. I think it's telling us something. The burned page held fragments only, not human like we know." Theo tried to mark the path. They know when we write. The bureau moved quickly. The canister was retrieved, sealed, authenticated. It matched the 1970s model used by geology students for specimen storage. Theo's field knife, found. Earlier was designed to fit inside it. The theory was that he, or Ellie, had divided their writings intentionally, creating backup caches in case one was lost. Which begged the question, how many more were out there? Excavations resumed with new fervor. The canyon walls were scanned with hyperspectral cameras. Acoustic mapping teams searched for hollows or changes in rock density. They found dozens of minor anomalies, most natural. But one stood out. About 1.3 miles south of the original site, a cliff face showed signs of subsidence. Soil samples indicated moisture not found elsewhere in the region. A remote camera snake was threaded into a crevice. What it captured made the team fall silent. A staircase. Rough-hewn, carved into the stone, descending at a steep angle. The shaft was no wider than a child's shoulders, and it vanished into darkness. It was real, and it hadn't been made by wind, water, or time. Permission to explore was denied at first. Too dangerous, too unstable. But after intense lobbying and closed-door meetings, a single camera-equipped probe was approved. It descended slowly, its night vision lens flickering through dust and heat distortion. At 26 feet down, the feed cut out. But before that, it captured one frame. A wall, covered in handprints again. Only these weren't smudged or random, they were arranged. 5 rows of prints, each smaller than the one below, as if representing generations or hierarchy. No text, no symbols, just the memory of touch. The feed never reconnected. They tried a second probe. It melted. Not burned. Melted, as if exposed to heat far beyond ambient temperature. The Bureau shut the dig down the next day. Publicly, they blamed equipment failure and safety concerns. Privately, they locked the site behind 2 fences, 6 cameras, and a patrol, and they gave it a code name. Echo Corridor. Alan Morgan, now nearly 80, wasn't allowed into the restricted zone. But one of the younger agents, moved by the sight of him sitting alone near the base camp, handed him a sealed envelope. Inside was a transcript, one paragraph only. It was a recovered passage from Ellie's burned page, enhanced under laser microscopy. I keep writing in case. Not to be found, but so they'll remember. We didn't scream. We didn't break. We waited. We listened. And now we are part of the silence, too. Alan sat with the paper for an hour before folding it into his wallet. He never spoke publicly again. In late winter, a third photograph surfaced. This time not from the canyon, but from a collector of 1970s camera gear. She had purchased an estate lot from a storage unit auction in Moab. Among the items was a box labeled CRX 1974. Inside, undeveloped film. She had it processed out of curiosity. Most frames were washed out. One was not. It showed Ellie, her back to the camera, standing at the mouth of what looked like a narrow passage between rocks. Her hair was loose and she was wearing a red scarf no one had ever seen in the other images. In her hand, a piece of paper, and in front of her, a shadow cast by something, or someone, just out of frame. Ellie had taken that photo herself. The camera's timestamp placed it at least 2 days after the others. Proof that she had survived longer than believed. The scarf was never recovered, but a thread of red fiber was later found lodged in the corner of the first canister, previously overlooked. It matched the photo. Tourists don't visit that part of the maze anymore. Rangers gently discourage it, citing erosion and difficult terrain. The truth is subtler. Something changed after the discovery. Not in the land, but in the air. Animals stopped crossing into the ledge zones. Climbers reported headaches and GPS drift. And one guide, Pilar, who had first seen the shimmer, left her job entirely. In her resignation note, she wrote, "I heard them, and I don't want to hear them again." The story never went mainstream. Not really. There were articles, yes. Lost camp found after 50 years. Desert secrets. The maze mystery. But none carried the weight of what was actually found. Not the fear. Not the silence. Instead, the canyon kept its reputation as remote, poetic, beautiful. But some hikers still talk around fires at night. They say there's a place where no echoes return, where voices vanish mid-sentence, where every third photograph blurs in the same corner, and if you stay too long, you'll dream of handprints. In the local museum, the Wind Markers exhibit draws modest traffic. Inside a glass case are the Polaroids, the foil message, the red ink map, and now the scarf thread. A sign explains their context with sterile precision. But next to the case, there's a small speaker. Visitors can press a button to hear Ellie's final known words, reconstructed in audio by voice-matching technology. A quiet voice. Measured, unafraid. If someone finds this, tell them we remembered who we were. We weren't just lost. We were still us. And that has to be enough. For most, that's the end. But behind the case, etched into the museum's stone wall in letters almost too faint to see unless the light hits just right, is a final inscription, added quietly by a former ranger who helped carry out the last excavation. It reads, "The wind brings messages. Some just take longer to arrive, and underneath, they were heard."